Heaven. This is a new Heaven Talk with your guy, Tycoon Heaven. And today we're going to be talking about one of the aspects of the everywhere, right? Because we're going to shout out to Neville Goddard too. What's up, Neville Goddard? Heaven, right? And it's the idea of the everywhere, right? Because in the Letting Neville Be Our Teacher, right, he points to the fact that everything is eternal, right? It's all an energetic substance. It's all an oscillation inside of the ether, right? It is all an imagination state of the I atatai. Everything is eternal. Where is your yesterday? Well, it's still somewhere inside of the everywhere, right? Where are any of your futures, especially these parallels? Well, they're somewhere inside of the everywhere, right? And so it's, well, if everything is eternal, what's going on then, buddy? If everything is eternal, why would it matter what I do, right? Why should I care what I do if this is the kind of eternity we're playing with, where everything is? But we do comprehend the idea of the dormant states and the active states, right? Because the dormant states are the states that are maintained by the I atatai. They always are, right? We have very little interaction with them, but it is the active states, the states that come from all the actions that we've chosen, right? Those are our active states, whether they be 10 years in the future or 10 years in the past, right? Those are our active states, but they are also the active states for everything inside of eternity, right? The active states I choose, you have to deal with it. Whatever parallel you're in, you have to deal with it, because this is eternity. This is the everywhere, right? It contains the everything, but we do get to pick what is actually the main vibratory feel of the everywhere by the choosing of the active states, right? So let's talk about get into it a little bit more about an active state. And we'll say that an active state is a choice, right? It's the choice you chose, given the selection of all the choices you could choose. That is what an active state is. And so in every time you make a decision, well, you have brought into being the active states, right? And so whereas there are lots of active states of heaven, but if you refuse to bring any of them into being, well, they are all just stay in the dormant states, right? And so whereas heaven could be a majority in a particular spot in the everywhere, if the awareness is having state traveling through this particular aspect of the everywhere, choosing the yes in that aspect of the everywhere, right? And so you think about, well, okay, well, let's get into it with the dormant states, right? The dormant states is everything we've refusing to choose. And when I say we've, I'm talking about every awareness state traveling everywhere in any form whatsoever. All of those we refuse to choose. And we have to remember, this is the multiverse, right? We have at least a gabillion other Earths choosing states. And yet there are still states that are in the dormant states, right? Because it's really giant, but it's bigger and more giant than that, right? And so we have to make an aware decision to choose which states we would like to bring into the active states so that everybody has to deal with it, right? I make this video, I put it on YouTube, It's about heaven. It's about comprehending reality in totality of comprehending eternities folded inside of eternities. And we all get the benefit of that. And I could have chosen to say, well, what the heaven? I'm just going to let it stay in the dormant states. But I embraced my power and said, well, let's put it in the active states and have everybody deal with it, right? Because we must all be choosing the active states of heaven for the active states of heaven to be what we all have to deal with. If you are choosing something other than the active states of yes, then that is what we have to deal with. Right? And so we come and we push it up and we say, hey, choose the active states of heaven, yes, and bless, and have heaven.